Oh, right on 10 o'clock, which makes it Lancaster Woodturners weekly coffee hour. It's number 204, I think. I hope I haven't lost track. My name's John Kelsey. I'm your moderator as usual, as most of you know. I see David Hudgel is on here. David, I do have your pictures, and I'll get to them. Uh, and I see other people with pictures, and I'm glad about that. But I've been away for a bit, and I've got some pictures I'm going to show. Before I do that, there are some announcements, I think. Ziegler, you have an announcement on Barry's behalf, or is Barry going to make it himself?
So the announcement Barry wanted me to make was it's a little bit early, but coming up the Saturday after Labor Day, I don't know the date, but it's the Saturday after Labor Day. It's the Lancaster Music Fest. I don't know where it is, but um, there will be a turning demonstration by Lancaster area turners. Um, and I guess anybody else that wants to participate between 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So it's not like we need that many people, but it's the typical kind of, I guess, turn tops and things like that and let the kids color them maybe with markers and what have you. So he just wanted to get the word out early
Yeah.
so that, anybody that's interested, let, I guess, let John or Barry know, and
Yeah.
there'll be more detail coming up. I think
I'll,
I think last year that's when the lathe
oh,
had an electrical problem and
yeah.
they had to get cut short, but that's,
I
I
think
guess, taken care of.
I think it's at the Science Museum over by F&M, and I'll sign up for that for sure. Another Lancaster events. Let's see. There's a club meeting next Tuesday. Is it the jig show? Is that the
It,
topic, or is there a demo?
it's the jig show, and not totally unlike last month, but this is featuring jigs. So I'm asking anybody that has made a jig that is transportable, or anybody on Zoom, please either have your jig ready to show or bring it to the meeting, and we'll spend some time discussing them and how people approach that particular kind of a jig. And Barry said he's got a few that one's recent that he's tested. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Barry's latest jig is.
So while you're talking, why don't you tell us about the Ernie Conover weekend?
Okay, so Ernie Conover, currently we have, it's 2 days. It's on June 22nd and 23rd at Kauffman's, where we meet. We have 12 current um, people signed up for Saturday, and we have 9 signed up for Sunday. Saturday is going to be Ernie at the lathe, probably starting about 9 o'clock, guessing running till lunch, and then picking it up afterwards for another 3 hours or so. So it's going to be Ernie at the lathe from what I'm calling soup to nuts demonstration of sharpening, safety, different tools, and then some demos on spindles and bowls and what have you. And then Sunday, um, it's hands-on. We have, I think, 5 operable lathes right now at Kauffman's. And so I think Ernie would like to have maybe 2 at the most at each lathe. So we could use one more person to sign up for Sunday. And again, it'll be from 9 or so until probably 3 o'clock. Um, and it will feature spindles and then some bowl turning. And I'm working with Tom Wenzel and Barry, and I'll talk about this next Tuesday. Ernie would like to have some green or relatively fresh wood for the bowl blanks. I have a bunch of 4 foot long, inch and a half square spindle blanks, but I need to get prepared some ideally 8 inch diameter by 2 to 4 inch thick bowl blanks that are green. So I don't know that I have enough wood here. I'm going to scope out the club stock and see what I can use there. But Ernie does not want us to be using walnut because some people are sensitive to walnut.
Okay, well, there's lots of cherry around, and I think that Johnny Kiplinger still has some.
Right. And so I'm going to talk to Johnny if he's there, because if we don't have enough at the shop, or what I have, I'm going to see if Johnny can, accommodate me to come over there and see what I can find in what he's got in his backyard.
Good deal. Good deal. I'm seeing 37 on screen right now, which is since the Zoom is only going to show 25. I'm just going to tell you about that to get it on the tape. Any more club announcements from Lancaster or anybody else? Okay. Since I'm talking, I'm going to hold the floor for a second. I'm going to attempt to share screen. I hope I can do it. I have not done this this way for quite a while. So I'm just give me a second here to get oriented. I'm on my laptop and rather than in my usual multi-camera complicated setup. So I'm liable to be defeated by the simplicity of it all, but let's give it a try. You seeing that?
Yep.
All right, that's the entrance to the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, where because of my connection with the Furniture Society, I got an early guided tour as it opened 2 Sundays ago. So that's how it looks like coming into the Javits Center down to the ICFF. That's what your intrepid reporter looks like in somebody's very fancy mirror. I'm also wearing most of these pictures are taken with my trick glasses. Um, and the we got a tour around some shops, and I was very surprised to learn how much CNC machining the furniture makers in Brooklyn are doing. So at the ICFF, I saw a lot of what looked like turnings. And I asked people, okay, well, how did you make that? And some of them didn't know, and some of them did know, and they told me. And it's a variety of turning, CNC, and shaper. And I'm going to show you some pictures, and let's see if we know what's what. So this is just you also see a lot of stuff like this at the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, uh, and I'm very sure this was all made by CNC. And likewise, I don't know how they made this one. A lot of bending wood, a lot of joining. I really can't figure this one out, and I couldn't find the guy didn't know either. People selling the booth were the marketing team, but this was a mind blower. That one. You can see these, okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Okay, this one. What do you think? Is that turned?
It's a segmented turning.
Well, it actually was made on a 5-axis CNC machine. The base was one CNC thing, and the top was another, and then they threaded them together. And I think they did it in Turkey. I'm not sure. The guy was from somewhere in that part of the world. And this was the one that surprised me the most. Is like, well, why wouldn't you turn that? Well, that's not what we do here, I guess. It still blows me away that you can do a thing that size and that shape entirely on a CNC machine. I think there's an awful lot of sanding with it, but anyway, that was a good example of one that completely surprised me. Now this one, what do you think about this one? She's pointing at the joint between the seat and the back, which is kind of a V joint, bird's mouth joint. This was also CNC completely. Each piece here, I don't know, was made with a CNC machine out of walnut, and then assembled into this very uncomfortable chair. The ICFF has a mixture of international manufacturers, domestic manufacturers, and artisans. And this is one of those small, little wee artisan booths. And that's where I found most of the things of interest in the artisan booths. I don't know these stools here. I'm pretty sure they were CNC. I couldn't find anybody to let me know. There wasn't anybody in the booth who had any idea how they were made. This was an international manufacturer from somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure where.
Hey, John, hit
Yeah,
Function F and see if they can come even larger.
function F.
Just Function F. You're on a Mac, right?
Yeah, I'm on a Mac. Now that didn't do it. Let me see. Well,
Function F didn't do it. Okay, well, that's as large as it'll get. So,
I think that is, well, it's partly I'm needing to see the gallery here, so I've kind of got it a little
oh, okay.
straight.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, this one here, also CNC, both the tops and the legs, and the sockets where the legs fit. So what they're doing is gluing up big blocks of wood and then turning the robot loose to whittle it all away. I saw a CNC machine in one of the lofts in Red Hook that was, oh, it must have been 10 feet by 6 feet of the working area. Just an enormous contraption. And it had a bit changing. It had a row of cutter heads, and the main cutter, the apparatus could go there and choose what bit it wanted, put one down and pick up another one, and then go back and work some more on the piece of wood that was lying in the bed of the machine. These are, I just threw these in because these are dyed wood. These are dyed black. So for all y'all who do, and it is also CNC, not carved with a chainsaw, carved with a milling machine, basically. But dyed a dead black, which also surprised me because it basically dematerialized it. You couldn't really tell it was wood. This I just put in as a, whoops, let me go back to that. This is a Japanese manufacturer of chairs and things. And again, no one there could talk about how they did anything. I think a lot of it, I think in this case, a lot of it was standard manufacturing, which would be copy lathes and shapers and small batch production assembly. Very nice furniture. This of the things I was able to sit in and try out, this company from Japan had some of the very nicest chairs I've ever sat in. They were really good.
John, that fan back,
Yeah. The fan back?
yeah, right in the center there, was the headrest mounted to some of the rungs?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a strap that went around, and it was it Velcro sort of thing, the sort of thing that always slides down. But it did seem to stay in place. I think it had a rubberized back or something that held it in place, but it could be adjusted. You could adjust it up and down, and it stayed where they put it. It was I didn't quite get what the mechanism was, but it was clever enough to work. Now this one, what do you think? CNC or lathe turned? Can't tell, can you? This is a dude from Maine, and this was turned on a big one-way machine, all turned. That was a sculpture, but his table bases looked like that as well. And I might have another slide of his stuff. These are not quite in. Yeah, this is also his stuff. Same fella. The discs, I believe he turned and carved the way you and I would. You know, they had them mounted on the lathe, and I think he was going around with an index head and a ball mill or an air chisel to carve the grooves in the discs that are mounted on the wall. And this is the fellow himself. And I knew his name a couple days ago, but I've lost it. I'm sorry to say.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
So did they display those discs vertically because of a lack of space? Because it looks kind of like an eclipse, which typically would not be vertical, would it?
I think that he's one of the artisans, and he has a real tiny little booth.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of forces the display. But I think some of those he was using for tabletops, and some of those he was using as wall sculptures.
Yeah, I mean those five pieces just look like the beginning and middle and end of an eclipse.
Yeah, I think that's what he had in mind, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to really talk to him a lot, or he didn't. If I'm in the booth trying to talk to him and somebody who might be a customer comes along, I'm
Yeah.
going to shut up and let the customer have the floor. So that's what
Right.
happened. Somebody came
Right.
along who looked like he might actually buy something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually happened, but it's as a non non-credentialed journalist anymore, I'm pretty careful to get out of the way. Okay, now this is from Turkey. These black things underneath here, I was all ready for those to be CNC, but nope, these are turned on a lathe by a little old man. The lady, they told me, uh, with a chisel, just like you and I would. I have no idea what kind of a lathe, but having seen some of the videos from second world countries, it could be quite a contraption. But anyway, these five things holding up the table are all turned. These things on the top are ceramic, thrown ceramic. These, however, are CNC. And I was looking to see, okay, is there a way I could have done this on a lathe? Probably, I'm not sure. This is quite the off-axis nature of this. These are little stools or end tables. The off-axis nature of them, I think, makes that pretty tough. But I thought they were quite nice, but they were definitely CNC. And a join. There's a join here in the middle, so each of these is two parts. These also an assemblage of CNC pieces into sculptures. So they were turning. Some of the stuff is attached, and some of it is part of the central mast. And it was a little unclear which it was. They didn't think they were very good sculptures. I just thought that was an awful lot of what looks like turned work put together. Now this bureau here, this one surprised me a lot. I have another shot of it, I think. I was all ready for that to be CNC. Here's what it looks like when he opens the drawer. But nope, shaper, big shaper knives, which is, you know, how this all used to be done. The mirror you can see in the corner of the picture up here with the inlaid oak squares, however, that was CNC. They excavated the little square places where these veneers are inserted with one of these enormous CNC machines. So these guys are really just using all the technology available to make this stuff, which was very gratifying to see. And we think we're in the early stages of it. You know, I think we're going to see more better come along sooner. These also CNC, these legs begin square and go around. It would have been a piece of cake to turn them, but nope, they made them on a CNC machine. As these are roots, the roots of teak from somewhere in Indonesia, and then they're Bowman. This one's for you. These are as much epoxy as they are wood, and then they are CNC'd into the cube or the rectangular rhombo thing or the cylinder that you see. These never saw a lathe. They never saw a hand tool either. I think they excavated these things with adzes and axes, and then they go somehow into some colossal pressure pot because the amount of epoxy in these pieces was astonishing. And they were being promoted as a way of ecologically using the remnants of harvesting all the teak wood, which struck me as well. It might be true. I don't really know. But I thought it was interesting the way they actually were quite nice. Oh, I didn't mean that, but there it is. That's a close-up. So there you go, Bowman.
Yeah. You know what, John? I'm starting to feel like writers are about AI. The CNC is trying to take away our hand turning. So,
well, these were hand turned. These cones, the wooden cones here were hand turned, and the plastic cones in the background were cast from molds made from the wooden cones. And I don't know how they made the donuts, but the wood part is actually turned on a lathe the way you and I would. That also surprised me because these of all the things I saw, boy, that's CNC for sure. So, and I never found out about these. I couldn't find anybody who knew a word, but I'm pretty sure that was CNC made as well. And you can see in the background here the kind of people who show up. Some of them are in jeans with sweatshirts, and some of them are extraordinarily elegantly dressed, and everything in between. It's really quite an event for the design and furniture world. And back over here in the background also is a log, boule sawn log into boards that they had there just to demonstrate that, yes, we do work with wood, and yes, it does come from trees. So that was pretty interesting to me as well. So that's my slideshow. I'm going to end the share and give other people the floor a little bit before I come back with Hudgel's stuff. So any comments or questions on that?
John,
Yeah,
with those
John.
items, all,
Sorry, you gone mute, Barry. I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I asked were all of the items for sale and made as one of a kind or a line of product?
It depends on, some of them were willing to take orders and manufacture. Some were already in production from the larger companies. And some were designers looking to sell a design to a larger company. There's a lot of that. People will go with a design that they think can be manufactured and look for a manufacturing partner so that they can collect a royalty on its manufacture. There was a lot of that. So it was really a range of things. And I don't understand the economics anymore of the furniture trade. I never did really, so I'm not sure beyond that. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
Yeah, John. These CNC machines, the way they're created, the way the items are created, is they design them in a CAD CAM package. So they just say, I want a cylinder so high, so long, this size. You know, I want to put a cove here. I want to put this here. I want to put that there. I want to join it together with another part. And then they just export that to something called G code.
Yeah.
And G code, they feed that directly into the CNC machine, and it turns out a product.
Well, you got to put the wood in the tree. The other part that people leave out is you got to get the blank glued up in the first place. You got to have a big enough blank. And I saw
Oh
that
yeah,
in the shop tours in Brooklyn. A lot of an awful lot of big, huge clamping setups in order to make big blanks that could then be CNC'd into shape for whatever they were trying to make, which is kind of a change. I mean, there's if I was a working journalist anymore, I would get a really good article out of this, on this growth of CNC and small batch production. There's a good story there somewhere, and maybe somebody's already published it and I just haven't seen it, but pretty interesting stuff to me.
This reminds me, John, of the machinery companies like JLG lift trucks. I was in their factory once. They used a torch that's controlled similar to CNC. They slide on a big piece of steel and just,
Yep.
and they cut their pieces out faster. You can watch it,
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's the same thing happening in wood.
Yes, it is. Wilson, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Dad was a member of the Interior Design Furniture Guild, whatever it was back in the day. And he would go to similar instances, just as you referenced. He wouldn't enjoy most of it because most of it was transitioning, as you just demoed, to the shapers and the CNCs. And his comments always were, I don't understand it, I don't get it, but I have to go to see what the trends are, to see what the direction is. And Dad built furniture. His focus was not lathe work. He built furniture. And he, as you had stated prior, I don't know if he understood how the finance of it worked. So whether they're selling the component or the designs to the manufacturer to get the funding, to buy the blanks, to build, to offset, the takeaway is that you should go because you're gaining those insights moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. I'm very glad I was able to go. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move this along to other people that got things to show. Ray, you're up there first. Ray?
Hey, John, I'm going to share. Okay, I had a small jewelry dish, and as we talked about it, there was a lot of things that.
We're not seeing your share, Ray, I'm afraid.
Oh, you're not? Yeah, it's up here. You don't see that?
No.
Let me try again.
Okay, I'll give you one more try here.
One more try.
Here we go.
Bingo.
Okay. I had shown a small jewelry dish, and as we talked about it, a lot of questions, and then talking to Ziegler when we was out to shop day, I said I'd put a little something together. So this just goes through the process of making that small dish. And it's kind of interesting if you've never seen it. The end result is 3.5 by about 9/16. And this was done on a Rose engine. What I did is I started with some Richlite, which is a resin paper. It's the recycling paper, and it's a resin compound which helps not use African blackwood, which is harder and harder to find. And they're making countertops and amazing stuff out of this stuff. So some of the guys kind of got off into this, and it is interesting. What I did is I held this is a 4x4 piece, held out some big jaws and cut an 1/8 recess for internal chucking. Then I took that and I cut that 4x4 down. I had to size the blank. So we set that up on the Rose engine and brought it down to a pretty precise size. What that ends up to be is within 1/1000th of an inch. So now here I'm cleaning up the edge of that, and this is getting ready to start the process. I went over to the big lathe, and what I did is I cut about a 3/16 inch tenon on this, and I relieve this corner. You got to be just careful because you clip this stuff. The dimensions and everything is so tight. So you just cut this corner off, and I put a tenon to hold this while I work. Now I set up, this is known as a 24 bump rosette here. I set that up for the bottom design. And now what I did is I have that tenon formed, and I decorated the bottom. And that's just like anything, people flip things over and want to see what it looks like. I'm cutting this with an eccentric cutter. This is angled off about 115 degrees towards the item, towards the outside edge. And what that allows me to do is cut the center of this down just a little bit so when it sits on a table, it doesn't touch. So this is it. This is done. And what I've done here is I've cleaned this up after I cut a radius on this. Now we're looking at the bottom of this small dish. I cut a radius on this, and I added, there's a little detail right here. That's only about a couple thousandths of an inch. I wanted to break up that visual line between here. Now this is where it's going to get chucked up, but it runs from here up, and I just thought this adds a nice, you turn it over, just a nice visual. Now I set up, this is called an 18 bump D shape. This is shaped like a D rosette with large radius rubber. And this is what rubs against the rosette and makes this go back and forth. With this setup, this large radius allows you to change the amplitude, the height of how this bump works on the machine. This typically be 187 thousandths. I did this, and what it ended up to be, it lowered it to about 70 thousandths. So I was only running about 35 thousandths each side of center. Now, what I did is I cut this outside edge to give it design, and then I undercut that here. So it gives it some character. Now, again, we're looking at the bottom, and then now I'm going to turn this around. This is actually what that looks like. Now, again, this is only 3.5 inches across, but when you cut this out like that and then put this edge on there, it gives it some character. And then you can see it sits on this base. And this is a closer look at that. And what I've done, sometimes these are cut. This is a barleycorn design. Sometimes these are cut to come to a point. And I don't like that on this because I like to, when you flip this over and you're moving it, it picks up the light. And the light on these small squares really makes this come out in a 3D effect.
That's a little jewel you got there. Wow.
And now I turned that, actually, we were looking at the bottom. I turned that around and remounted that, and I cut the top edge. Now, what I did was a little different. It's not the normal thing to do because it's really hard to line up. This was the top edge of the bowl, which would look like a normal bowl. I cut that back just enough to give this little line right here as part of the pattern. Now this, the problem with doing that is when I've cut the side edge, I undercut it in the back. When I do this though, and I set this up to cut the center, getting this to match is extremely hard because I want this line to intersect perfect right on top of this.
What do you mean really hard? What do you have to do to do it?
I've made this cut. This cut here, this first cut here is inside.
Yeah.
So this is on the edge, but now I go over the edge and I'm doing the inside. So
did you make a test cut and then see how it looks and fiddle with it, or what do you do?
No, I do this, and when you make this first cut, I'm cutting like back in here. Now this is total thickness when I start. So I cut back in here and I will do a test cut. We got to be very careful because between here and here is only 50 thousandths of an inch. So I cut back here and I know the numbers. I just have to set up my numbers and make sure my stuff is exact. Again, I'm only swinging off center 35 thousandths of an inch. So I ended up bringing this, and you bring your cut back to get this edge where it's either visual or you have something plotted out. And usually what I do with these is it's different materials have a different look. So I brought this back to where I just thought it was visually appealing. And then I made this first cut. This first cut, typically you go between 50 to 75 thousandths. I did go to 75 thousandths. When that did, it gave me some depth down into the dish. And then I make this cut, and then what I have to do is phase this, where I make my next cut half off. So this center has to be half off of this center, dead on. So again, you set this up, and ahead of time you can plot according to the depth of the bowl how deep your cuts are going to be. And I decided I was going to try this one to 75 thousandths. I'm going to do 50 thousandths. I came out looking nice. So every row is the same way, going move, phase it, cut, 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 cut. And then when I got down here to the bottom, what I wanted to do is I want to make a transition into the bottom that gave this a little bit of a flower effect, because it's hard to get these, you're getting down real small. It's hard to get these beyond here. So I cut that down in. So when you follow this line from this edge and you follow this along like this, you follow that, that goes exactly into the bottom, and that's what you want.
Ray, how many hours do you have in that?
A number. I don't know. I had some issues that I had to deal with. Let me stop this. I had some issues I had to deal with when I relieved the bottom. I hold that when I come off the big lathe, and I put that on the Rose engine. I have a mini chuck, and like when I internally chucked that, it was only like an inch something internal chuck. And when I went to cut behind that, this thing was so small in diameter, I was afraid of catching that chuck when I made that undercut. I could cut the edge, but underneath I couldn't. So rather than take a chance on damaging a cutter, which is very expensive, to make, I figured I would turn this around and cut it in reverse, and then flip it back around. And that took a lot of time. And then making the transition by turning it around, I had to do what I did on one side. As everybody knows, when you turn a bowl around, it's never exact. I had to exactly match that. So everything moved from the line, went from the bottom around the edge and down the other side. And I had to get it within thousandths of an inch. And then they go down through the bowl. And every cut, it's tedious. I could probably do one now today. If I made one a little bit bigger, or I could do that undercut, I could probably do one in a few hours.
Yeah. Other questions for Ray?
Ray, will you?
Barry, your mic went again. You're blowing out your gain or something. Can't hear you.
I did
Hey,
not
Ray.
mute.
Yeah.
Hey, Ray.
Yeah.
What when you did
Can
that
you hear me now?
eccentric cutting frame on the backside, did you use a 90-degree cutter or a 60-degree cutter?
Boy, when I did on the bottom,
Yeah.
that was cut with a cutting frame with the one with the looks like a flying saucer.
Oh no, the eccentric cutting frame on the bottom. You did that with a.
That may have been a 90 now that I think about it. And that small eccentric cutter. So that's only in between an inch and 2 inches total, and open it up.
Back to Barry.
Ray, when you purchased the individual, it looked like about half-inch thick plexiglass wheels. Do they come from a catalog, and do they suggest in the catalog what the patterns that will result look like?
I got those from the guys that built the Rose engine offer those. When they do those, there's no catalog to go to.
Wow.
Some people make them. I mean, you can make your own. The problem is that you run into, if you don't have the accuracy, when you start doing this stuff, if you're off a couple thousandths of an inch, it shows up every time you go around. So they get them cut. Since I got into this, the technology has changed to cut them. You can get some today that are much more accurate. When I got them, I had to hand finish them. They were laser cut, and it had a smooth edge, but it was not exact. So, you know, I have sets of rosettes. That's what you end up doing. It's each one, you know, does something different. And by using the rubber of different sizes, I just got an attachment for that, an amplitude adjuster, which lets me change the height. Like that was like 187 thousandths. I can use that adjuster now and go over that and under that without having to fiddle around, because the swing off center when I do that was down to, that was only 35 thousandths each side of center. So when you cut, you're going one way and then you're going across the center and you go, you know, go over and then you come back. I'll have to take a video of to show how that works. But
so you're getting a finished surface off your cutters, and what I know about all these guys with the CNC is they're getting a sandable surface, but not a finished surface.
Yeah, this the way that what I did with that one that I showed the bottom where I cut the radius.
Yeah.
What happens with this Richlite? Because it's recycled paper, I'm going to oil this. It looks, the light picks that up. It doesn't look that bad when you look at it, but I'm going to oil that, and that should take care of that, because that's layers of paper and resin. So what I did, I want to show that right off the machine. Now, what I did was to clean that up, I did two things. I used a jeweler's brush. I typically do not put anything, touch the edges, because you can, if I nick an edge, you can see it. I mean, it stands right out. I used a jeweler's brush, which is very, 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 very fine brass brush. And I brushed that at the inside and the outside with that, and then hit that with a horsehair brush. And that's all that was done to that. Actually, you know, there it is. So
it's really beautiful work.
That satin look come from just hitting that with a horsehair brush. But that's just something I've learned over the years. There's no wax or anything on that. What I'm going to do is I am going to try a little Odie's oil, kind of to just take out that little bit of what appears to be the little specks from the paper. So,
really super work, Ray. Thank you for showing us. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to bump us along because we're going to run out of time. Ziegler, you got a video you can show of the setup?
Yeah, let me try to share my screen here.
Okay.
I think. See that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It's not fancy. Patty and I were just there last week, and I was walking around, so I have one of each of the display cases. The diversity is remarkable, I think.
Yeah, and I think the display is remarkable, thanks to Barry.
Yeah, the whole thing is.
Yeah. Well, Thomas's idea for the ledgers, and Matt actually worked out the dimensions, and Barry made them, and Rick painted them. So it was really a group effort to get this done.
Yep.
Without the risers, we'd be dead. Those are my bowls. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But
I like your rail. I like your rail, John.
If this work was all flat on a table, it would be utterly bewildering. But with these little platforms, it really made it all possible to have such a variety in such a confined space.
John, I liked your little rails of the turning too, spindle turnings. So they were kind of hidden right there. There's one in the end there, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that yours?
Yeah. And the nutcrackers, Nick's nutcrackers are astonishing.
Is that a wooden oil can?
It's an oil can box by Dave Blisle. It opens.
John, is this a full motion video?
Yeah, it's you know, it's what you get here on Zoom. It's jumping around, but we're seeing it.
Oh yeah, we're seeing it nicely, but I just wondered.
Yeah.
That setup adds depth to the, it just accentuates the turnings. I mean, it's just that smart, and it's better than a linear, just
Oh yeah, linear would have been disastrous.
linear would have been, this is wicked smart. Great idea, guys. Fantastic.
And also the boxes are made so they're each individual box, so we can use
Yep.
these in almost any situation to display wood.
Wicked smart, wicked smart.
John, remind me, what are the boxes made from?
Very thin plywood. I think it's about 3/16 plywood, and there's little glue blocks inside to hold them all together. And Barry's really expert at putting this kind of thing together. I mean, he made 22 of these boxes quicker than you could blink, with almost no waste, and we used up 5 sheets with almost no waste. Amazing.
They were made from subflooring, by the way, which was the cheapest. I think it's a 0.20 or 0.21 thick subflooring,
And it's
and it
smooth.
was cheaper than quarter-inch plywood.
Did you cut them on
white
the
anyway? You can't go
Barry?
wrong. Perfect.
Barry, did you cut them on the CNC?
Barry cut them on a table saw, I guarantee it.
And while we're on the matter of the train display, Dave Blyle pointed out to me on day 2 that somebody, the second day of the display, he took people down there to see it. And the little boxes that I had made that were magnetically attached were missing. And so I happened to be down there yesterday and on a return visit, went through their lost and found area with all these luggage pieces and such, and there on the floor where the 2 boxes are. They're just little green boxes that were magnetically attached for people to pick up Woodturner Club handouts, and they were taken down as a navigational hazard, a trip hazard, and so I'm going to rebuild them, and I got the permission from Molly John to go ahead and use Velcro.
Perfect. Great. Glad to hear that.
Let me just add one more note that I meant to mention at the beginning. Also, because I don't know how many we've received lately at Lancaster Woodturners meetings, but if members want to send their work for display on the monitors, I'll put it in the chatter unless John has it. Lancaster Woodturners Zoom at gmail.com is where folks should send their images or videos of their work.
Yeah, for club meetings. Yeah.
Club meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, John.
Yep.
I'm going to show Hudgel's pictures now, since he's been agitating it for a while and we haven't been able to show him. So I'm going to do another quick share screen. Hudgel, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, talk to it.
Well, we discussed this a bit last week. What my concern was, how to keep the whiteness in the wood with finishing. And somebody mentioned that even putting water on whitish wood would turn it a little bit yellow. And that kind of rang a bell, in that almost every finish would yellow it a bit. But if I used a spray that evidently isn't liquid, like the Krylon UV protector spray, which was gloss, it didn't yellow the wood. So maybe that's the general concept, but I don't. Maybe others understand it better than I do.
Comments?
That's a beautiful piece, by the way. That's just
Yes, it's
gorgeous.
nice little oak burl.
Okay, I'm going to have to quit the share to show the other pieces, because I did it wrong. So I'm going to do that real quick. Stop the share, bring the other ones up. That's these. Reshare. If I can get back to the Zoom. Here's the next one.
Yeah, that's a piece of Manitoba maple with, again, whatever finish I put on, and I can't remember, it yellowed this area a bit.
So Manitoba maple is to you is box elder to us.
Yes.
That's really, did you do anything to preserve the red color, or is it just surviving until it turns brown?
It's surviving by itself. It was this, these pieces were incredible. This was the wood that I've displayed before that had the tree shakes to it. And this one I was able to do an end grain bowl and keep it together.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Next, you want next one? This one.
That's a similar piece.
And you wanted us to see it because it's a great piece, or is there a question?
Well, the question about trying to keep white wood white with finishing.
I find lacquer is the best bet for that.
Okay.
Lacquer yellows the wood less than any other finish I've tried, water white lacquer.
Good.
And Osmo oil is pretty good at it as well. It does darken it. It does not add much color to it. So those would be my suggestions. Anybody else comments on David's work? Nice work.
Yeah, I use a I'm sorry, not automotive, but a marine spar varnish. And my boss had a wooden boat. Well, the transom was teak, and that's what we used on it exclusively. And that helps the red to stay, but it will turn just a little bit, make the white turn just a little bit yellow. But I do that because I know it's a heavy UV protector. And as I understand it, UV protection comes just like it does with sunscreen. If you want to dig deep enough, I don't think they give it the exact same ratings, but there is difference. And there's a big difference in the percentage of polyurethane and polyurethane varnish. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Any other comments on this before I kill the share? Okay. Thank you, David. I'm sorry it's been a trial to get the work up. It's been between my travels and yours, but anyway, there it is.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for showing. Let me see, Chalikian. We don't hear from you all that often. What do you have today?
Me bring up my mic.
Yep.
I've had several things that I've been working on that I'd like to show. This is a piece of walnut. I took down a walnut tree from a friend, and so this is the first piece that I cut. Interestingly, inside here, there is one spot that no matter what I did in terms of the cut, it still was rough. So I had to do a lot of sanding on this. I'm not quite sure why that was so difficult. I imagine it had something to do with the direction of the grain, but I can't really see it in there.
Hey, John, kill your blur background while you're showing these. Do you mind doing that?
How do I do that?
Down in the left corner under video, just select, turn off the blurred background. You're on a laptop?
Yeah,
I'm on a Samsung tablet.
Just hold the work in front of your face and then it'll unblur there. That's the only way to do it.
This is
right in front of your face and back closer to your face. Now we can see it.
This is a ball that I turned back in January and then rough turned it, set it aside, and I've just finished it. Actually, I probably have a few more coats of lacquer to spray on here, but this is my first experiment with a blue dye. And interestingly, when I first put the dye on, it was very blotched, and then it seemed to even out, and then it evened out more with the spray.
Bring it closer to your face so it stays in focus. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's a nice bowl. What's the wood?
This is apple.
It's difficult to keep apple together. It sometimes wants to come apart.
Yeah. Well, the tenon on here, I was really surprised it cracked. And I was a little nervous about that, but it managed to stay together while I turned it.
Nice piece.
While I was playing around with the die, I got the die from Craft Supply, their artisan blue die. So I've been, and this is, well, this is a wand with coils for increasing the magic spell. But actually, what it was I've been working on my skew work. So this was, and this is Apple. Started out, just as practice with skew, so I was just doing shapes. And I'm still having problems with getting spirals. I hope to get in with Ernie and have him look and see what I'm doing wrong.
He'll help with that for sure.
Yeah, and I have a 1-inch wrapping skew from Taylor, and that's the one that I have the spirals with. I have a 1/2-inch skew that I don't get spirals. So
yeah,
why I don't.
I find a 1/2-inch skew is the most comfortable size for me for most things.
Okay. Another thing that I did back in January.
Back to your face, hold it near your face, right in front of your face is the only way we're going to see it. Closer to your face.
It's touching my face.
There you go. It's coming in and there it comes. There you go. It coming in and out. I'm sorry. It's your blurred background is the problem. Yeah, there we see it.
I don't know how to stop that. Sorry.
Oh,
this is the widest thing that I've ever turned. It's finished out at 14 inches. It's Apple.
That's a beautiful piece.
I was ready to kind of scrap it because it was so punky. And so I just decided to go ahead and turn it anyway, just, for the practice. And when I finally got around to sanding it, I tried the best I could with my cuts with a bowl gouge. And then I sanded it with 120 and it started to come out nice. So I'm happy with it.
You don't often get apple that size. That's a good big piece of apple.
Yeah. My neighbor had an apple tree that died. And as you can see, this is, there's some holes in here.
Yeah.
If you, that, it was a rotted tree. We took down what was remaining of it. And so I got that. And that's it.
All right. Comments for John? All right. Looks like everybody likes your work.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the blood. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that.
There is. We just have to teach you sometime, but it'll take you longer than it'll do us a good.
Right.
Doug.
Okay. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to learn how to share screen.
Yeah. Well, let's have an off-camera session sometime. Doug.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You to the end, Bert. So go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, John. I've been working on a piece of some cedar that I think I showed you guys before. I'm working with John Ziegler. It's a piece of wood from the Seagram's factory in Ontario, old Seagram's factory. So I made, and Jim Bowman gave me the idea of making an emerging bowl. So I made an emerging bottle. I mentioned before about Seagram's whiskey, and you guys all didn't like it, but I think I'm really pleased with the final result.
You got something amazing there, yeah.
And I do have a question from it because this is the one I finished.
And that label is pecked out on the laser thing, isn't it?
Yes, John actually printed it out on his laser printer. So, and what I did with it is he's got a cylinder printer, or cylinder burner. So I took 2 pieces of maple veneer and glued them into a hemisphere like this. And we worked on a Saturday and enjoyed a small amount of whiskey while we were doing it. Not enough to Now I have one question. I'm making a second one, and this is a interesting thing. This is, I suspect the cedar is at least 100 years old. And so when I'm cutting it on the back side, you can see I got a finish on with my skew that's like almost 320 grit surface. But when I turn it over to the other side, because I'm going against the grain, I cannot stop the chipping. And to me, that chipping is more than I would normally see on anything, because if I get that smooth a finish on one side, why would it go so bad on the other? And I can only think that the reason for that is the wood is so old that it's become extremely brittle. Now, for the actual piece itself, I can just cover it up. Not a big problem. But I was wondering if anybody had any ideas of how I could make this a little bit less more chip resistant when I was turning it. I was thinking of just putting it into a bucket of water or something like that, just to get some water, moisturize it a little bit, and then let it dry. I was just wondering if other people had opinions on that.
Probably an oil might work a little better than water.
The problem I have, I agree with you, Mike, but the problem I have is that it all then change the color on the resistance to the stain.
True.
But on the other hand, if I'm using a polyurethane finish afterwards, it may be that it doesn't change it sufficiently, because I do know it absorbs in very, very deep. And if I was to oil, if I did that and then oil the entire surface before finishing it, that might be helpful. But yeah, thank you.
The suggestion I would use the Mahoney's walnut oil, coat the entire surface, make the cuts you need to make. It will minimize the chipping, but you only use it depending on the follow-up finish you're going to put on it. To your point, you're going to get discoloration between the two, so it may not be applicable there.
But you're saying Mahoney's walnut oil?
Yeah, Mahoney's. I've used Mahoney's in tear out spots where the wood is exceptional, and that's a piece of. Is that pine? Is that what it is?
It's cedar. Cedar.
So the other thing is that the way that it dried, the sap went low, and what you're getting that tear out on, there's no sap there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's 100 years old. There's no way there's anything left of sap. In fact, you can smell the whiskey as opposed to the sap. But to your point, though, if I use the walnut oil and then just use that as the finish for the whole thing afterwards, because I'm trying to keep it as natural as possible, regardless.
Don't do it on that. Use it on a test piece. I don't want you to go to town and bank on what I'm saying. I don't have enough experience with it, but I have used it in the past and it's been successful. Use it on a test, but I would suggest the walnut oil.
Hey, Doug, I think you need to dunk it in Seagram's. That's what it's looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about using a wood hardener? Like that aqueous polyurethane. I've lost the name of it, but it's made in a factory right by you guys.
Isn't that what Seagram's is?
Well, we can get into a long discussion about what Seagram's was and whatever will be. But
what are you cutting at? What are you using for the tool, Doug?
I was using a skew.
Huh.
I'm using a skew, and I'm using a really high, like a 35-degree angle skew. So it's a really sharp angle skew, and I'm cutting it almost vertically. That's why I said on this backside, I'm getting a finish that's, because I'm going with the proper grain direction on the skew there, it works fine. And I was expecting some chipping out, but this side is beautiful, but the back side, I was expecting some chipping out, but not as severe as it is, and it makes it difficult when you're going through the angle on the neck here to get this part smoothed down and get a really smooth cut. Because if I turn the skew around, then all that happens is I change the problematic cut to the other side.
On cedar birdhouses that I've made, which are basically a segmented, or not segmented, but a stave. I used to use a skew, and then as my hands got too shaky, I started using my 1 1/4 inch spindle roughing gouge and use the wing. And you can grind that to a 30 degree angle. It's a lot easier to control than a skew, and will give you a finish that's very, very close to a skew, and sandpaper will take care of the rest.
Yeah, that's what I would do in my situation too. I would use my spindle roughing gouge, the wing of the gouge.
Okay, I've tried. I'll try that again. I've tried it a little bit on this before. I understand what you guys are talking about. Making sure.
Hold to that too, and you
yeah, yeah. And you also it's a different position on the lathe itself. So I agree with you. I'll try that as well. But I wondered about rehydrating it and seeing if you guys had any ideas. I like the idea of the walnut oil as well or for that matter, any oil finish. I've got butcher's block oil, other things like that would be the similar thing. But if you're planning on finishing it in that anyway, why not just use it to start with?
Cedar's so soft, you need very sharp and very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the only problem.
I used, Doug, this is John. On the dish that I was just showing, this was very punky, and I used the Minwax wood hardener on there, and that helps. You get that set up, and put a couple of coats on there, and then you can cut it, make cut it a little bit better. And also, coating it with shellac and then cutting it also helps. But I sanded it. It was kind of rough and really open grain. And when I sanded it, got it to like 120, and that really smoothed it out. I was really surprised. Like I said, I was about ready to throw this thing out or just use it as a test piece. But it all worked out. So try those things, yeah.
I just remembered the name. It's called PC Petrifier. It has no odor. The Minwax is a lacquer, and you got all kinds of fumes to deal with. PC Petrifier, no coloration of the wood, and it needs to set overnight. It's phenomenal. It's made in Lancaster. I think it's Lancaster, somewhere very close to you guys.
We'll have to run that down, but we are up to 11 o'clock, so I'm going to pull the plug on you all. Bert, you'll be first next week. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for you, John. Don and I were talking about joining a meeting in UK, and neither of us has a pro account, and we were wondering if we could impose upon you to schedule a meeting for us. I'm just going to visit them via Zoom, but I don't have my pro account anymore.
How long when do you need to do that?
That'll be in August, and it'll be on a Tuesday.
Sure, I'll work with you on that. That'll be no problem.
Okay, that'll be great. How did that work for you, Don?
Well, that sounds very nice, and thank you very much for the offer, John.
John, anything I can do to help with that, I'm glad to do. I pay a bunch for this pro account, and I want to get the most out of it too. So, okay, thank you all.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you again.
Have a good day, everyone.
See you, Don.
See you all next week.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.